Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to Jamie Photography. Bit of a classic day tonight, I'm afraid. I'm going to do another one. I do enjoy it so much. So this is the scene that I've created. This is in Canterbury. I had the opportunity this weekend to stop by and get up early in the morning, take some shots in Canterbury. It was actually a really starry sky, but I have to say, replace this one. And I did take this photograph a little bit later when the sun had come up. This is where we ended up, but this is where we started. So the sunrise was well underway as I took this shot. I thought it would make a really good day tonight, got to be honest. So I decided to use this one and turn it into a classic Jamie day tonight. Give you some tips on how to do this. There's a couple of places in the video I do speed things up because otherwise this video would be extraordinarily long because we've got quite a lot of framing to do in the windows. So you will see that I speed through there. And I have, of course, done a sky replacement with a moon shot that works very, very well. So if you do like the video, then I'd love you to click like, and I always love to see your comments and your tips and views on what we're doing. So love to see those. And if you haven't already subscribed, it'd be great for you to subscribe and join me on this adventure here on YouTube. If you do want to follow along, I'm going to put both the sky and the Canterbury shot as raw files in a link down below. So feel free to download and follow along with me. All I ask is you do consider my copyright, and please, if you do share your versions of these images on social media, then all I ask is you give credit to at Jamie R. Mathlin. That would be very, very nice. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go straight to denoise. Even though we're at 100 ISO, we do need to consider the noise. If we zoom in, you can just see in that sort of darker area there is a little bit of noise there. So we're going to just denoise, going to click on denoise, which is in detail. We're going to run with 50% of denoise. There we go, 50%. We're going to also create a stack. So with that, all that means is that the new image and the old image will be combined into a single place within the film strip within Lightroom. So effectively, the original raw file will be behind the noise corrected raw file. So it just means that you don't end up creating lots and lots and lots of pictures in your film strip. So that's all that really does. So I think it's going to take 9 seconds to do this. So we're going to click enhance. We can time it if we like to see how long it's actually going to take. And then this is very much dependent on the power of your CPU. So if you have a more modern computer, you will find that it will do this a bit quicker. If you've got an older machine, particularly an Intel based machine, those can take a little bit longer than that, but no harm, be patient, we can get there. So we now have the enhanced noise reduction version. So again, if I zoom in here, you can see that there is no noise now whatsoever, so that's good. So what I'm also going to do is just go down into lens correction. It's all automatically selected remove chromatic aberration. That doesn't really make a great deal of difference unless you have a lens that does create some degree of chromatic aberration. Some of the older lenses do. It's quite a useful little trick if you do get a little bit of chromatic aberration. You can tick that and also enable the profile correction for the lens. So in this case, it's identified that it's a Canon 14 to 35 millimeter, and it's applied the corrections. If I turn that off, you'll see that the outer edges particularly fall away and there is a bigger vignette. Now I did actually shoot this at 20 millimeters, not the full 14 millimeters wide, so the effect is less pronounced towards the center of your lens. Millimeters, so in this case 14 to 35, 20 millimeters is around the center. You find that the amount of sort of chromatic aberration or sort of deflection of the lens itself in terms of the the perspective is minimized in the center, generally speaking. So the further you go wider or the further you come in on your telephoto, the more the effects may take place. Depends on the lens, of course. Higher millimeter lenses have less effect, lower millimeter lenses have more effect. So it's just something to bear in mind. You can also use sliders here to try to correct for vignette as well. Vignette is the dark edges that you get when you use, particularly when you use wider lenses themselves. You also have a manual setting in here, and what you can do in here is you can change the distortion by moving this little slider here, so you can correct for pincushion or barrel distortion. So that's barrel, that's pincushion. So you can correct for that if you feel that it's necessary in the image itself. So I'm just going to put that back to 0 there. See, I may feel here this is sort of pushing, this corner's pushing towards us just a little bit. So I may push towards a little bit of pincushion just to push it away slightly. There we go. And you tend to find that it can correct for the distortion that you might feel that you've got in the shot. Of course, you do start to get little white edges, so you just need to pay attention to that. We can crop that out. Also, down below you have defringe, and I was talking about the chromatic aberration. Now, if you have a bright edge, I zoom right in there, you have a very bright edge that's cutting across. Let me just bring down the highlights here a second so you can just see. So bring the highlights down. You can just about see there is a little tiny bit of purple. You see just on the very edges there that you've got a little tiny bit of purple. That is chromatic aberration. This lens is pretty good actually. If you go back to some of the older lenses, particularly something like the 17 to 40mm L lens that Canon made about 10 years ago, every single edge would have a bright purple fringe, and where it was on the opposite side of the brightness, on the other side you'd get a green fringe. That's proper chromatic aberration. And if I go down back to where we were, you'll see that the defringe, you have this amount slider, so I can take away the purple. So if you watch here this little edge, maybe I'll come in a little bit closer and you'll see we are at 300%. Let's go to 400%. You can see here if I move this defringe slider to the right, there you go. Can you see I moved it down to there, 7, and it's gone completely. So if you do see chromatic aberration, you can move that that defringe down. And as I say, the opposite is the green. You can see here there's a green slider as well if you are seeing quite a bit. And what you get now in this modern version of Lightroom is you do get the hue sliders for each of the purple and the green, so you can change the hue ever so slightly to really compensate for any color infringement that you see. So that's how the lens correction module works. It's very useful, very useful indeed. So anyway, moving on. So lens correction is done. What I'm going to do now is just go to the crop tool, and we're just going to crop this image slightly. So I do need to take that out at the bottom there. I'm going to come in a bit lower and just bring not too much of the green on that side in the shot. And I don't really want these windows in here. I can bring that over, but I do need a bit of space for the edge of this roof to fall in. So we will have to remove perhaps this gutter downpipe here when we go over into Photoshop. We also have the edge of this chimney here, which we'll also have to consider removing. So let's just see if that comes up at a standard size. I'm just going to go up where the padlock is, and I'm going to try a 1610. 1610 seems to work. Maybe I can pull that down just slightly. So I think that works quite well. So I'm just going to hit return. So we now have a standard size 1610, and the only reason you really do go to look at, when you're in crop, look at the standard sizes, is that when you come to print, if you come to print anything, whether it be a canvas or an acrylic, or even if it's just onto paper, having a standard size will help a great deal with the processing. Otherwise, when you come to print the image, particularly if you do it online, you may find that you lose some of the edges where you might not want to lose them. So I'm just going to stay with the 1610 for now. I'm quite happy with that. So just come back out of the crop there. So I think I brought down the highlights just to bring that sky down, and I'm going to bring up the shadows just a little bit, not too much, just a little bit there. And then we're going to go over into Photoshop. I'll want to do a sky replacement. Just this blue plain sky is no use to me at all. We need to bring some drama into the shot, and I do need to tidy up some of these edges using some of the new AI tools, which are extraordinary, as we've already seen in some of my previous videos. And there's a couple of things, little white marks, and then for some strange reason there's a cable going down there which we'll remove. So let's right click, let's edit in. We can go over into Adobe Photoshop 2024. So I'm going to use that. So do you want to open an Adobe Beta, which is already running? So I've got that running in the background. It's up to you to choose which way you want to go. Actually, you know what? I'm going to run Adobe Beta. It just gives us, there's a couple of extra little tools that you can use if you do need to use them. And whilst it's there and it runs very well, then I'm quite happy to use it. So just going to pop over into, there it is, Photoshop. So let's have a look. Where should we start? Let's maybe start with tidying up some of these bits and pieces on the right hand side here. I'm going to go to the remove tool. Let's do that first. So select the remove tool, which is under the spot healing brush. We're going to zoom in a little bit over here just so we can see what we're dealing with. Now the remove tool is really good for removing things where you have like a plainish background or you have a patterned background. It's pretty good. So I mean, I can remove that aerial just by highlighting it there. I might remove this pinnacle that's behind with the birds on top, just to see. I left a little bit of a mark there. We can come in and tidy that up. Just come in there with the remove tool. There we go. A bit there. We've got this chimney that we want to get rid of, so we're going to go around the outside like that, down, make sure we got the lead, and then come up this side. Now the good thing about the remove tool is that you don't have to fill in the center. If I let go now, it'll automatically fill in the center and it will remove it. There's a cable coming down over the roof there, so just going to click once there, shift click down there, let's come down just to remove that cable off the roof there. Move it up by holding down the space bar. So we just need to remove this as well here. So as you can see, the remove tool is really good where you have patterns or where you have the sky up above. Now it's going to be more challenged here, but we're going to try it. So we're going to come across here and we're going to try to take out this downpipe here. Just make sure we've got all of it in there. Down to the top of the fence. Let's see how it gets on. There is a pattern behind. Yep, did fine. So happy with that. And I don't want to see the end of this roof here, just as it's coming up here. I'm just going to take the end out and it hopefully will just continue it on, which it does. And I'm happy to leave those little joints in there. That's good. There's a little box on the wall there. Get rid of that. And then we have, see, that didn't work very well at all because there was different patterns between the brickwork and the plants. I'm just going to undo that. It got a little bit confused. So either we go in much smaller and much tighter. We don't go over the plant. There we go. And then it's still not done a perfect job. So let's go to the lasso tool. Let's take the lasso tool and we'll lasso around that, and we'll ask generative fill to do the work for us. So select that and then don't write anything in the box and just generate. Okay, let's have a look, see what it did. See, that's much better. You see, that's option 1, option 2, option 3. I think option 2 is the best one. So that's got rid of that. Now, generative fill will also work well for this sort of framework here. It looks like they've left their rake out. So we're just going to come round and we'll just go around the items that we see here using the lasso tool. Generative fill and generate. There we go, option 1, option 2, option 3. I think option 1's the one because it's got rid of everything. So that looks fine. This is a little bit distracting on the very edge here, and I'm going to see if we can just try to remove it without going into the brickwork. Let's just try that, just so that we get a nice clean edge to this. Let's just come around the bottom there, up there, and then back up to the top. And we'll do generative fill and generate. Here we go, option 1, option 2, option 3. I think I'll stick with Option 3, still something ever so slightly on the edge there. I'm just going to remove that as well. So generative fill and generate. There we go. Option 1, option 2, option 3. I think option 2 is the best. Right, so I'm happy with that. It will come down here. Go back to the remove tool, mainly because it's quicker. You must select the background layer when you're on the remove tool, and you cannot correct over the top of generative fill items that you've done. If you want to do that, then what you do is you right click on any of these layers and you say merge visible. It brings them all together. It does mean you can't go back and change anything you've done, and people often say to me, well, why do you do that? Because you have the non-destructive mode. And I say, well, actually, if I've done the work that I want to do, I'm not going to go back on it anyway. I'm just going to, continue forward. So it also means when you come to the end, if you have lots and lots of layers open, it makes for a huge file to save. Whereas if you have brought it all back to just a single layer, ready to take back into Lightroom, it will make the file ever so slightly smaller. And that just makes file management a little bit easier. We don't all have hundreds of terabytes of space available to us all the time. We have to be careful to make sure that we manage our space properly. So let me just come over here. So there's a cable here. So we'll go into the remove tool there, just slightly big. I'm just going to just follow that cable down. And the remove tool is normally quite good at removing cables that you see. So let's just see how it does with that. That's fine. Just going to take that leaf out of the water there and that one there. So there's a little feather floating down the water there. So there was a slight drag in the surface of the water because we were at a slightly slower shutter speed. So this beautiful wall, I don't really want to see a breather block in the wall there. So I'm just going to take that out as well. So there we go, they're nice and tidy. Anything else that we need to consider up here? No, this all looks nice. So we've got this chimney pot. I think is a little bit distracting, particularly with the aerial on it. So we could take the aerial out, or we could take the whole chimney pot out. I think I'm going to do the latter. So I'm going to go to the lasso tool. I'm just going to start here and then just follow my way around this aerial here. Just keeping it nice and tight. And then we will go down and then we'll come up along the edge, roughly along the edge of the roof. You don't have to be perfect here because the AI in the generative fill sort of knows to figure that out. So as you can see, I've just sort of gone along the edge there. I could have zoomed in closer, but click generative fill and generate. There we go. That's option 1. Option 2 is pretty good. Option 3 is even better. So I'll stick with option 3. I missed the little thumbs up button. Thank you, Adobe. I missed that one. It used to be quite fun just to say which ones I like the most. So I'm just going to continue around. Now I do know there's a road sign over here, and there is also a car just passing on the bridge here. I don't really want to see these signs here. I can leave the street light in, but I think we should take the signs out under there. Again, they're a little bit distracting. The tower gate here in Canterbury is it's a beautiful 13th century piece of architecture. It's actually called the Pound, and they used to put all the bad people in there and treat them probably appropriately, but it is now a restaurant, and you can go and have a wonderful meal sat inside the Pound, and how things have changed in 700 years. So anyway, let's get rid of these signs. So I'm going to zoom in a bit closer. So I'm holding down the Alt key and I'm just using the wheel on the mouse to wheel in. Now we are really, really close. So you're starting to see the pixels here, but we can go with the lasso tool. We can just, again, go around this sign. Let's take the bottom there. Got that. Come back up this side here. I'm just going to come up tightish there, around there. There we go. Back up to the top. So we'll click generative fill and generate. Okay, done a great job at removing that. Option 1, option 2, option 3. I think option 2 maybe is the best one. Or what about 3? No, I'm going to go with 3. Now, you probably heard that it's likely that Adobe will effectively start to charge for the generative fill function from the 1st of November. and I've done a little bit of research on their website to try to understand what it exactly means for us. And it isn't as bad as perhaps we may first have thought. What we're going to see is a token based sort of where you get so many tokens towards generative fill. So if you do have a subscription, a monthly subscription, as I do, I have the photographer subscription, you get 250 generative fill tokens each month, and those generative fill functions will count for one token for each generative fill. Now you may think, well, 250, I'll go through those really quickly and then I won't have any more. Well, what it's really about is giving you priority on the server. Once you run out of tokens, it's likely that the generative fill will still work. You'll just have to wait. It may also sometimes, when you come to use generative fill, come up and say, the server's too busy at the moment, try again later. So we'll have to wait to see what happens with that. So let me just click this one here, generative fill and generate. That's option 1. Option 2 looks good. Option 3, I think I'm going to go with option 2. Yeah, so at the end of the day, we'll have to see how it plays out. I think we'll probably be okay, because generative fill is something that you won't use too many times in an image. I mean, I do this all the time. I enjoy using the generative fill function. I've been counting the number of times I use it, and over the last 6 images, I've used generative fill 75 times. So I don't do much more than 5 or 6 images a month in terms of a full process. I do these ones here for the tutorials, and I tend to use anywhere between 10 to 15 generative fills per image. So I feel quite comfortable that I should be okay with 250. Of course, if you're doing it as a profession and you're making money from doing this sort of work every day, and you're probably using it 10, 20 times every day, then it's a different story. And of course, you'd have to look at options for paying for additional tokens for generative fill. So we'll have to see how that actually goes. So I'm just going to take out these umbrellas, which are part of the restaurant on the other side, and also these signs on the lamppost. Now, as I've spoken before in some of my other videos, because we have this column coming down and it's not broken, it is broken there, so we'll have to see what it does. But it should keep the column in there. So we'll click generative fill and generate. And there we go, option 1, it's kept it in. Option 2, option 3, I'm going to go with option 2. And the last thing I'm going to do whilst I'm zoomed in here is go back to the remove tool, click the background there, and I'm just going to take out the blue information sign there. That looks good. Okay, there's a floodlight there. I'm going to use the remove tool to remove that. Now the remove tool won't come under the same scrutiny as generative fill, because the remove tool functionality is actually done locally on your computer, so so there's no need for them to charge you server time. So I think I'm just going to zoom out. I'm going to click on the magnifying glass and click fit screen. I think we are pretty good, ready to go for the sky replacement. So we'll do that by going to edit, and we'll go to sky replacement, and then in here we will find a suitable sky. So at the moment I've got a moonlit sky with some stars. We are going to cancel that for a second and just bring these all back to merge visible, so we have a single layer. Let's do that again, edit, sky replacement. Okay, so it's going to put this image that I've already got loaded in there, I think from a previous video that I did. So we can move that around, and we can bring the moon into the shot if we want to here. So I mean, that could work, you know, with this light here that we've got here. We could possibly use that to do a day to night in here. So we could possibly do that. So I could bring that down a little bit lower here, like so, and we could light up the sky. What we do need to do is make sure we fix these edges. So if I go, shift edge is already blurring over the top there. As you can see, if I go more that way, you can see it's coming more. So that's not going to work. So we'll try fade edge. Let's go the other way. That's not working particularly good. And we'll do foreground lighting. Yeah, we've still got quite a bit in here. We can adjust that. We can go into more advanced mode to try to fix this in in Photoshop itself by looking at the additional layers, and we could do that. So if we go to new layers, that when we output this, we'll have a little bit more to play with. So let me just try the color adjustments here, just to color this scene a little bit better. We'll go a little bit bluer with the sky, not too much. That's fine. Can we fade edge anymore? It's not particularly good along the edges here, and you can see here this is not very good through here as well. So it's okay over the top of the building. What I could try is the refine brush tool. So let's just make that a little bit bigger. So this is the second one down here, and I could just run down the edge of these areas here. There we go. Let go. There we go. You can just click on those to bring that down. So the refine tool allows you to try to bring the background through, but the problem with it is it does tend to lend itself to darkening the actual sky. So just get that one there. And we'll have to deal with this in a moment. So edge lighting, we can bring that up just to see how that sits with that's to the full right, that's to the full left. You can just see that little bit of an edge there. There we go. Right, I would say I'm happy with that sky replacement. That's gone in quite well, actually. So I don't need to go to other layers to work my way through some of this sort of detail here. I think we are quite happy with what we've got. So anything else to do here? No, I don't think so. I can just try it on screen just to see what effect that gets. It's too bright. You can affect the foreground lighting with the slider when you're in screen, but in this case I'm going to stick with multiply, and we've got a nice dark sky there. So I'm going to click OK. It's going to give me a duplicate layer there, so I don't need the old layer. So I'm just going to right click on that and say delete the layer, and then I'm going to bring this back into Lightroom. Now I know it doesn't look very good at the moment, but that's why we're going to do a day tonight to bring this where we want it to be. So I'm going to go to File, Close, and Save, and it's going to throw it back into Lightroom for me. Here we go. So now we do need to deal with the foreground. Okay, so there's a couple of ways we can do this. Select a brush, and this is going to be effectively our mask here, because the sky is very dark and the foreground's light, so it will struggle to know what is the sky when we do this. So I'm just going to put the flow up to 100%. I'm going to bring the feather down quite small. I'm going to take a larger brush, and then I'm just going to paint this. Oh, we're going to turn off the auto mask, sorry about that. So we're just going to paint in the area that we want to be able to try to lighten. So I'm just going to come up here. We have to be very careful that we don't create a halo when we do this. So there we go, that's coming across there. Lovely. So that's our mask. So now we should be able to darken the whole scene down. Let's bring down the highlights. Let's just bring that down a little bit more. You know, I think I might even choose to just darken the sky as well, just slightly. We can always brighten the moon up again. So just bring that down so it's reasonably dark, because we'll relight the whole scene, so don't worry about that. We're going to bring that down there. Should we bring down the shadows? No, I think we'll leave them where we are, and we'll add a bit of contrast in. But what we will do is add a bit of blue tinge, because it's nighttime, and the blue is the effect that you'd get from the moon. So we need to make sure the moon stays bright. So we create a new mask here. I'm going to go to radial gradient, and I'm going to take quite a big radial gradient here, because we're going to create a moon glow. Okay, so feathers at 100%. and then we're just going to bring up the brightness of the moon and the moon glow. I'm going to bring up the highlights. And we could even put a little bit of colour into the moon, just like that. That looks good. Quite happy with that. Let's make the glow a little bit wider if we wish. And then we need to brighten up this reflection down here in the water. So I'm just going to right click on that, duplicate the mask, grab that mask and bring it down here. I'm going to rotate it round so it's in the same direction that the moon's in. There we go. Just pull it out a little bit bigger. And we might want to make that just a little bit brighter. So you've got the moon lighting up the waterway there. I think that works quite well. Perhaps we'll add a little bit of clarity just to make that pop. And this one up here I think also will add some clarity to that one as well. So the moon's nice and bright in the sky. That's good. So we'll also want to do some moonlighting on the plants and the trees around here, but we'll do that in a little while. What I do want to do is light up these windows inside this this scene here. So if you've watched my previous videos, you know this is one of the fun things I love to do, grabbing a radial gradient, popping it over the window, but the center of the radial gradient needs to go where the light would be in the room, and the light could be up here on the ceiling. Yeah, so I'm just going to rotate that, make this bigger because that's where the light's coming from, so you get some gradient of brightness coming away from that point. Yeah, we're then going to just go straight to 100% +4 on the exposure, and I'm going to add in a little bit of temp just to light up that scene. Now what we've got to do is zoom right in onto this window. So we're going to come in nice and close. Probably going to come in at let's try 300%. There we go. Oh, don't move the light, don't move the center. There's the center, will be there, look, up on the ceiling up there. That's where we want to be. So I just want to move holding the space bar down. So now what we do is we subtract a brush. Okay, so we take a nice small brush. We have next to no feather at all. I'm literally going to have like 5% feather. Take the brush smaller again. I might even come up to 10% feather. That's it. And we're going to paint down these edges, yeah, to take away the light. Now, this piece of wood here would be lit from the light coming out the room, okay? So we have to be careful we don't make that too dark there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around the edges of it, starting at the top here. I'm going to click once, right click, and then I'm going to go down and hold down the shift key and click again just to get a nice edge along there. The windowsill would be dark, so I'm just going to come along, do the same thing on the windowsill here, and the lead will be covered. And then we're going to come back up this window edge here. So we're going to click there, shift click there, along the top, click, shift click, let's come along the top, so that's fine. We'll come around and do the bits around the outside in a moment. I'm going to make the brush smaller, and I'm just going to come in on this wood here, click, shift, click, and the same on this one here, click, shift, click. Now we do need to do the lead going across, but that doesn't need to be quite so dark. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, actually before I finish, I'm just going to pop one edge in here, just in there, so we've got this piece segregated. So now what we do is we reduce the flow. Okay, so we reduce it back to say 60%, somewhere around there, and we take a smaller brush here, and if you can see that the brush is too big for the lead there, and if I go down one size using the square keys, which are to the left of the return key, it's too small. So what you need to do is zoom to a different zoom point. So if I go to 400%, for example, and now I try those brush sizes again, you see this brush size now fits this piece of lead. So I can click and then shift click on this side, and come down from the top here, click, shift, click, just get in the right place. There we go. And just work my way around doing all of the lead framing. Just gives us a nice effect. That's it. Now this top area, as I said, this is going to be lit by the room, so that would stay illuminated. This edge needs to be dampened slightly, so I'm just going to take a slightly bigger brush, overhang the edge of that lead there, same down the bottom here, and click. And that's not as bright. So in fact, I'm going to take the flow back just a little bit further to about 45. There we go. And I'm just going to do that again. So we come down here, shift click, and what we get is not such a dark area. So same across the bottom. You can see there, it just it works a little bit better. So I'm going to do this one whilst I'm here now. And I want to do this area like we talked about earlier. This will have some light on it. So I'm just going to make the brush bigger. We're at -40, or we're at +45. So I'm just going to come in there. In fact, that's too much for that area. So I'm going to back the flow back to say 20, 26, 25%. Click on that. And then I'm going to go across the top of the windows as well, just with that lower level. So we're going to go back into where we were here, go back up to the 60% that we were at. If you are finding problems sliding to the right number, just click on the box and type in the number you want. So that's an easy way to get to where you want to be. So we're going to take this brush here again, and we're going to just take out the framing here, so it looks natural across on this one. You see I don't go all the way to the edges here because we'll use that slightly lower flow remove subtraction to get rid of the difference. So you get a gradient of light between the bright areas and the dark areas. So I'm just going to get this one done now. Bear with me. That's it. And then we'll go back to the lower flow rate. It doesn't really matter where you are, but in this case I'm going to go 40, and I just need to take out the edge of this window here just to bring that down just slightly. Same on this one, just bring them down so they're not too bright. That's it. I'm quite happy with that. I think that looks all right there. Just darken that slightly at the top. So that's our window. Right, so what we now do to get the real contrast, to understand how this works, we're going to zoom out slightly. We'll go back to 100%, and you think, well, it doesn't really look like it's illuminated, but let's take the rest of the radial gradient away. So we'll bring the flow up to 100%, take the flow down to 0. We'll take a bigger brush now, and we can click, shift click. Make sure you don't go over the window. If you do make a mistake and click over the window like that, you just Command or Control Z to undo your work, so that's not a problem. And you just click and shift click just to take the in effect get the lines. I'm going to go a bigger brush again, because then I can just take away freehand around. Now if you think you've got it all, hover over the mask here and you'll see whether you've got it all, and you can see that there's some to the left, some to the right. So we're just going to come around here and make sure we've got all of that. So hover over, there we go. So now there's a little bit along the top of the window there. I'm just going to get rid of that. A little bit at each end. I think we're done. There we go. So now when you look at the window, it looks more realistic in the sense that it's illuminated from within. If I think, well, we need to make this brighter, we could add highlights to make it brighter. We could increase the shadows to make it brighter. Okay, that helps a little bit with the edges around the windows, as you can see. But if it's still not bright enough, if you think, well, if I go back to the full back position here, fit, and you think, well, yeah, maybe it's still not bright enough. I think it actually is bright enough. We can adjust some contrast. But if you wanted to make it brighter, you can click on the actual radial gradient itself. You can right click and you can duplicate the mask. Okay, and then it will go much brighter. Right, and now if you adjust this mask and you set that to 0, right, that's effectively where you were before. But because you've got two masks, the one on top you can now add more if you want to. Yeah, you can choose how much you want to add, or you can subtract it down to 0. Because you've got two masks on top of each other, the top one will effectively be an addition or subtraction to the one below. So it's a good way of adjusting it if you wanted to just find where you think the brightness needs to be. And I think actually we're going to come up a little bit there. We're going to add some contrast to that shot, and we're certainly going to add some clarity to that shot as well. And I think it's important to add a little bit of noise reduction in there, because we really are pushing the limits of what's possible with that with the additional light that's in there. So I think I'm going to need to light this window as well, and the main windows here. They need to be done, and maybe these over here, to give a real effect. So I'm going to speed the video up whilst I just do these, because it will take me a little bit of time to do these additional windows, and then I'll come back to you in a moment once they're done. Now that's one window done on as well now. So now I'll do the main window here. This will take a little bit more time, so again I'll speed up the video. Now what you see I've done here is I've taken a third radial gradient here and made a small one and made it really bright, as though there's a light bulb in there. I did a similar sort of thing up here. In fact, this one's probably just a little bit too bright, so I can back that off a little bit. And I think I might just back that one off slightly as well, just it's not too bright. But you can see here that we've got this sort of bright. I could even do another one on top, so a fourth one in this area here, and just make it really small, so it's a pinprick of light, so that you get that effect that there's a light bulb on inside the room. So this one's got a little bit more color. I can back that off just a little bit, just so it's not too bright. I need to do it to the main mask, this one here. So I can just back that off just slightly, so they all match in color. But that gives you a real effect of a light bulb there. So so I've just got this window to do here, and I'm going to do these two windows as well. So forgive me, I will speed up the video again, and this one's going to be a little bit more complicated because we've got plants in the way, but I'll deal with that as I go through. So let's continue, and I'll speed up the video again. Okay, that's that window done as well. I think I just need to bring down the brightness on along that edge there. So I'm just going to zoom back in, and we're just going to bring this brightness down here. So we're going to go back to subtract brush, and we're just going to go in with relatively low flow here, a little bit of feather, small brush, and just take down that edge. It's very bright. So we can do a couple of passes just to bring down. I think we're also going to do this one here. Just bring that down ever so slightly more, so it doesn't stand out from a distance here. I think this one needs to come down just a little bit as well. So as we zoom back, we should see a more realistic sort of look in that room there. So I'm just going to go back to the previous mask there. This is the one we want, and I'm just going to add a bit of contrast into that room there, and add a little bit of clarity. I think that looks quite natural as well then. So happy with that. I think there needs to be some light or something over here just to sort of pick this area. I think this wall should be illuminated whilst we're here. I'm just going to create another radial gradient coming in here. I'm going to pull that radial gradient across this wall area. So there's a light just out of shot here. Okay, and then I'm just going to light that area up. So we're just going to bring up the exposure in that area there, give it a bit of color, and certainly give it a little bit of clarity to make it pop a little bit. Bit of contrast. Back it off slightly, And it just looks like there's a light out of shot here, and it's also lighting up these bushes. Now we will add some more light to these bushes in a little while, but I'm just going to go across here and I think I'm going to do, well, you know what, for the sake of time I'm probably going to leave those two because this video will be very long otherwise. So let's just add in the additional light that we need. So we do need some light along the top here. So what I'm going to do is create a new brush. This time I'm going to have auto mask switched on. I'm going to keep the flow relatively low, but the feather quite high this time. I'm going to bring up some exposure, add a little bit of temp in there, just a little bit of magenta to balance it off. And what we can do is, using a slightly bigger brush here, is we can just pick up the top of these plants here, maybe just a little bit around the window as well, just to make that brush a little bit smaller there. Then we'll just get those nice and bright coming out the window. So let's turn that auto mask off for a second, actually just get some proper brightness going on top of there, and just fade that out. And over here we're just going to have a little bit of light coming onto these bushes as though it's coming from over here and from up there, and a little bit more on these roses here on the wall, which look very, very nice. And it's all about the good old dodge and burn, you know, where you would have light and where you wouldn't have light. Just to sort of make it stand out a little bit, maybe a little bit down there coming in again from across the way there. I'm just going to brighten up those slightly. I do like these down here, so I'm just going to pick those up with just a little pass of light. And these trees are going to be a little bit brighter because of the moonlight coming in there. So I'm just picking those up in that area there, just to make it look as though the light is just coming in, maybe up on these branches as well. Just brighten these up a little bit here. It just looks like we're getting the moonlight coming in. Same down here on these ones, a little bit on there. So just as though we're just picking that little bit of moonlight up onto these plants around this sort of area here. Just going to put a little bit up there as well, just a bit brighter up the top there. That works okay. Maybe I went a bit far on that one, so I can hold down the Alt key to go to a minus brush, make sure we've got plenty of feather, and I can just take that back out over there, just so they're not too bright as we come into that area there. Right, so anything else we need to do? Well, I might just add an overall bit of brightness to that end there of that building, just to pick that up. Now these lights are going to light out into the water, so that light bulb is coming down this way, so we do need to put some light in the water here. So we're going to create another radial gradient. We're going to pull it in here, quite a big one. We're going to rotate it, so you see the light's coming down this way, and there's going to be a line coming out here. So I think you're going to see the majority of the light around about there. Let's just get that exactly where I want it. That's it. Then we're going to bring up the exposure in that area there. Now you see it gives us this sort of effect that light is coming out of that window. So we're just going to add in a little bit of that yellow there. Now it wouldn't be bright here because we'd have a shadow, but it would be a diffuse shadow because it's quite a long way down from that window. So what we're going to do in this mask is we're going to subtract a brush. This time we're going to go with 100% feather, and I'm going to go about 50% flow. Now I need to bring a line, strike a line. So I'm going to click here, I'm going to click here, shift click to strike a line across there, as you see. So we're subtracting it from here. So let's just make sure, I'm going to bring that flow up a little bit more actually, so we can actually see it happen. So we're going to click there and click there, and I'm going to go back a couple of times just to darken that area down there. Can you see how that's created a little bit of a shadow there? I'm just going to go to 100% now and just take out anything else that's in there. So let's just hover over there, hover over the mask. You can see we've got that sort of line there, as though that's in darkness and the light's coming out from the window. We could in fact broaden this just a little bit more. There we go. And I'm going to add in a little bit of contrast there, not too much, a bit brighter, and add in some clarity. That will make the water shine a little bit better. Now I'll go back. I think that's just a little bit too bright, but I'll just drop a bit off there, and what we'll do is we'll step back and just see what it looks like from the from back here. So let's just do a full screen for a second just to see. That looks quite good. Yeah, I quite like that. We do need, I think we need a little bit more light on this building here somehow. And I think we need some sort of light over here as well, just to break that up. And I'm going to darken the top down just a little bit more. So let's, and this needs to be darker here. So let's do that first. So let's go back into mask. I'm going to take a radial gradient here. I'm going to pop it in this space over here. Make sure the feather's at 100%, which it is. Just pull that out a bit. There we go. And I'm just going to drop the exposure. There we go. So it's a little bit darker. Drop the highlights down there as well. So it's a little bit darker down there. You can see the castle still there, but it's just a little bit darker. It was a bit too bright up there. But I'm going to subtract the edge of this building here. So I'm just going to bring the feather down, and I'm just going to take that off. So the building's still nice and bright there. And I think we just need to make sure those plants stay quite bright over that side. So that's looking pretty good. I think the moon just might be a little bit too big, but we'll deal with that in a second. I'm just going to go back in here, grab another radial gradient, and I'm just going to pop another radial gradient in here. This can be very subtle, this one. It's just to come down this area here. Just a little pickup of light there, and just going to add a little bit of warmth, as though this light's almost reflecting up onto this side. These just need to come down just a little bit. There we go. More contrast. Yep, that looks good. I'm sort of quite happy with that. Now, let's deal with this moon, because I think it's a bit too big in the sky. So we're going to go into Photoshop. Jump over into Photoshop. Here we go. Go into beta. Yes, with all the adjustments. Yes. We'll go over into there. There we go. And I'm just going to go up and make this moon smaller. Now, how do you do that, you say? Well, what we do is we take a lasso around the moon like this. So we've just got ourselves a standard selection there. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to select. We're going to go to select and mask, so we can pick up on where that is. We're going to smooth out the edges of the smooth out, add a feather, so we can blend that a little bit of contrast in back into the center there. We can shift the edge out a little bit more, bring that contrast back down. More feather again. There we go. So we've got quite a feathered selection there. And then I'm just going to edge detection, just add a little bit of that. Right, so now that's our selection, okay? So we're just going to click OK. So that's the selection we've now got with the feathered edge. What we're going to do is we're going to Control C, so we're going to copy that, and we're going to Control V, we're going to paste that, right? And the reason why we've made it a separate selection is we don't want the sky to be affected by the reduction of the moon. So we select the layer the new layer that's come up, layer 1, which is the moon. We then hit Command T, okay, or Control T, and that's the same as here, free transform. You can get to it from the edit menu. And once you're in free transform, we can now grab the corners of this. There we go. And we can make a smaller moon. We can move it back into the center. There we go. And now we've got a smaller moon in the sky. See, that works quite well. Let me just move that back over here, so it's in the right place. Now you might say, well, look, we've got these duplications, but we can deal with that. What we're going to do is we're going to hit enter to say we accept that smaller moon. We're going to combine the two layers together, so we right click on them and merge visible. And then what we do is we get the remove tool. Okay, so we go over to the remove tool. There we go. Take a slightly bigger remove tool here, and we just take a bite at the duplication that you saw there. Same here, so we're just going to duplicate that. Remove that as we go through there, and that gives us this sort of, we don't get this pattern that we were looking at earlier. So I'm just going to make a couple of other little changes so it doesn't look like we've got a duplication. And that's how you can blend that in, make that work really well. So let's just go out to full screen, see if that moon's now the right size. That's certainly a better size to go in there. I'm happy with that. So we're going to go to File, Close. We're going to send it back to Lightroom by clicking Save. And we're back into Lightroom. So just the final processing of this image, just to get it where we want. We can do that with the main sliders. So I'm just going to desaturate the whole scene slightly, because with moonlit nights, they tend to be less saturation. I'm going to bring up the highlights slightly, just so it stands out with the moon in the water there. I think it's important to add just maybe a little bit of clarity, not a lot. It's a very powerful tool, clarity. I'm going to bring the vibrance, just a little pop on vibrance. Now, we've got to find the balance with the overall lighting of the scene. So I think we may have to bring up the brightness just slightly to make it workable. There we go. Bring up the contrast just a little bit as well. Now, I do think we need to add a vignette here just to sort of balance this image off. I'm going to come a bit brighter still. There we go, and just bring down those highlights that I brought up earlier. Yeah, that works well. And we're going to go down to effects. We're going to bring in a post-crop vignette, quite a big one, so probably around about 30, but I'm going to feather them out just slightly. Makes that work. Am I happy with the brightness? Let's just go full screen here a second, just see where we sit with that. I think we need to go just a little bit brighter. And I want just a little bit more color, but I don't want the overall saturation, so it's going to be a little bit more vibrance just to make it pop a little bit more. Now these are a bit yellow, these windows, a bit too much, so I'm just going to go down to the HSL slider, and just in the saturation mode I'm just going to back off the yellow slightly, just bring that back so the lights are a little bit whiter. There we go. Can always add in a little bit more green to make the scene pop. And I'm going to say, you know, I think that's done. I think I'm happy with that. So that's a day to night, bringing the moon in the scene. And if you recall, where did we start? Well, we started here with the real bright scene. I mean, this is a bit of an extreme day tonight, I must admit, and we've taken it to that. So yeah, I'm going to call that one finished. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's more about technique, really, showing you the different ways to do things, how to think about light and bring light together. So if you did enjoy this, then I'd love you to click like, and always love your comments and your points of view. It's really good and interesting to see what you think. And also sometimes you can come up with some really good tips as well. So always interested to see that. If you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to join me on this adventure on YouTube. And for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.